we are going to discuss an issue which is, I think, paramount at this point of time, at this part of the year, that is air pollution. Not only air pollution in general, we have discussed air pollution once before, but this is a very specific objective we have today, air pollution beyond border. This program is brought to you by the Climate Channel, which is a Canadian television channel in collaboration with Indian media platform, the Plurals, and also the Bangladesh YouTube platform, notvbangla. So that's the combination, and is trying to bring a new kind of program. You know that the South Asian countries have a lot of issues of environment and climate change in common, but hardly we talk together. I understand the politicians not talking together on geopolitics, but what preventing the experts, what preventing the media to talk not together? So I think this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to do that. And today, before I introduce my very, very eminent panel to all of you, let me share a few data, a few thoughts about the scenario of air pollution in this part of the world. According to the figure that I have, in 2019, if you consider the PM 2.5, let me tell you, is perhaps the most potent pollutant. It's a particulate, extremely fine, much finer than your hair kind of hair. And it can go deep into your lungs, carries other pollutant with it, and can trigger range of diseases, including cancer. So that's why it's considered the most potent pollutant. So the PM 2.5 level, Bangladesh topped the global chart with 83.3 microgram per meter cube, followed by Pakistan in second position, Afghanistan in fourth position, and India in fifth position. We may be happy in India that India is in fifth position, the population that we have, and then you can understand the impact of this pollution on this people. We will be talking about the health impacts as well. And I was also checking the US consulate figure. US consulate, you know that they have put up this air pollution measuring kind of instruments all over the world, wherever their stations are, their offices are. And India topped the list there and then followed by Bangladesh, then Afghanistan and Pakistan. So that very clearly shows that whatever may be the sequence, this part of the world is perhaps the most polluted block of the world. Unfortunately, we may talk in the countries individually about this pollution, but not together. So let us try to do that. And let me introduce the panel to all of you. My panel today is Professor Sagnik from IIT Delhi, India. And Sagnik is working in this sector, especially I think he's working on this transboundary sector quite a lot. So we are all very keen to hear, Sagnik, your finding. Welcome to the show, Sagnik.
Yeah, thank you, Jayanta. Pleased to be here.
Thank you. I have with me Dr. Karthik Ganeswan. Karthik is a fellow at the Council for Energy, Environment and Water, CEW to be specific. Has a lot of experience on the power sector and lot of I think strong opinions about how this air pollution needs to be controlled. We'll be going to hear about it. Welcome, Karthik, to the show.
Thank you, Jayanta, for having me on this.
I have with me Dr. Ahmad Kamruzzaman Majumder. Professor Majumder is the Dean of the Faculty of Science in Center for Atmospheric Pollution Studies, to in short CAPS, from Stamford University, Bangladesh. Kamruzzaman Saab, I think you have been, I know that recently you've been working on the air pollution across Bangladesh, and we really would like to know what your findings are. Welcome to the show, Kamruzzaman Saab.
Thank you, Jayanta Basu. Nice to be here.
Great. And then I'm very, very fortunate to have Professor Abdus Salam from Department of Chemistry, University of Dhaka. Professor Salam, I have heard a lot about your work, and I've been actually discussing with Sagnik about the kind of work you are doing there. So really keen to know of not only the pollution in Bangladesh, but also the regional framework and what it needs to be done at the academics level to talk together. So welcome to the show, Professor Salam. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Jayanta Basu. Nice to be here.
And I have with me my good friend, Dr. Imran Sakib Khalid. Imran is a fellow from the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, SDPI, Pakistan. And Imran, we discussed before, Imran was in the show before also, and we discussed about the climate change issues. But I think today we need to talk about this issue, agenda of air pollution. Pakistan is one of the most polluted part of the world on air pollution. And Imran, welcome to the show. And we are keen to know what Pakistan is thinking about it. Welcome, Imran.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So with this intro and without much ado, I would like to go straight down to first Sagnik. Professor Day, as we discussed, this part of the world is perhaps the most polluted block across the entire world. Just give a perspective how bad it is in the South Asia. What's your finding, or what's the kind of scenario it is, Sagnik?
Yeah, so if you talk in terms of the fine particulate matter, PM 2.5, what you referred to earlier as, then the entire Southeast Asia is definitely the most polluted region in the world currently. Talking about India, the latest estimates in the Global Burden of Disease 2019 suggest that, almost 3/4 of the Indian population does not meet the Indian standard, which is itself 4 times higher than the WHO standard. Particularly, if we talk about the Indo-Gangetic Plain, which spans from Pakistan to Bangladesh, crossing the entire North India, that's the region where the pollution level is actually very, very high due to a combination of factors, which is meteorology, very high population density leading to high emissions, as well as the typical geography. So this entire region, the pollution level is really bad.
Okay. And South Asia-wise, this countries which we are talking about, India, Bangladesh, India must be the elephant in the room, but I think Bangladesh, Pakistan are also kind of having extremely high pollution. We'll be discussing that. But just a very quick question to you. Broadly, do you think the sources are same for this entire region? Broadly?
I mean, yeah, broadly, there are a lot of common sources. For example, industrial sources, power plants, vehicles, residential sources. And then you can also talk about, emissions coming from brick lanes, open burning and stuff. But then there are also some regional characteristics, variations in the sources, seasons, and all.
Okay. We'll be discussing this transboundary movement of the pollutants. But let me ask. Let me go to Karthik. Dr. Ganeswan, just now Sagnik talked about the sources, and he also referred about the energy sources. So you have been working a lot on the energy. How important is the role of thermal power plants and the other energy sources in this trend of air pollution across South Asia?
When it comes to thermal power plants, of course, Jayanta, India is the biggest, source of that because, by sheer volume in terms of the number of power plants that we have within the country. Well, at the high level, right, power plants probably contribute about, between 10 and 15% of the particulate matter at the national level, as far as India is concerned, 10 and 15%. Now, that might seem like, it's not that big, but at the end of the day, it's, every drop makes the ocean. So, you can't say that, it's not 50% of the problem. And it actually is that it is for parts of India, that number could be as high as 25-30%, right? And I think that's really where the big concern is. And of course, power plants also mean that, it becomes a transboundary problem much more easily. At least within India, it's a big transboundary problem. So, states that have power plants don't necessarily get impacted as much probably as the states that are neighboring, right, that are downstream or downwind from where the power plants are. And as far as the rest of South Asia is concerned, I mean, I know Pakistan, of course, has a big challenge because they actually have, a lot of aspirations for coal-based power plants, which in recent times, I know the Prime Minister, of course, said that they will, take a step back on that. But they have a lot of, oil fuel power plants as well. which are, of course, a big challenge. And Bangladesh has signed up for new power from India from coal-based power plants. So I think, there is definitely that common thread of power plants running through, all of the, the South Asian region itself. But yes, it is definitely probably one of those, big sources for the entire region.
Okay. Now, I asked about the power plant because there are other sources like vehicular pollution or the domestic, which even if you wish, you can't cut away straight down. But power plant is one part. You may not be doing it tomorrow, but if you have a plan 10, 20, 30 years down the line, you really can play an effective role on there. We'll be coming on that. But let me, as we referred to Bangladesh, let me go to Professor Salam first. Professor Salam, your take on this, your take on Bangladesh air pollution scenario and how it is kind of related to the rest of South Asia. Professor Salam.
Thank you, Mr. Jayanta, for this show. First, I would like to say something about the air pollution overall in Bangladesh. You mentioned 2019, Bangladesh is topmost. But if you look 2018, Bangladesh is also again on the topmost in the list. If you go in the Lancet report 2017, environment concern is the Bangladesh is the #1. And air pollution, 70% of that causes is coming from air pollution. So air pollution is a big issue in Bangladesh. If you quantify it, number of, particulate matter like PM 2.5, it's also high on average around 100 microgram per meter cube. And especially winter, the situation is very bad. Due to the geographical location, we have our pollution. We have a lot of our pollution. We're producing our daily in Bangladesh, but we are also getting a lot of pollution from our neighboring country. If it starts sometimes in November, the geographical location, if you see the Bangladesh where it stands, all the pollution from Himalaya, especially IGP region coming over Bangladesh, and it passes through Bay of Bengal. So when winter ends, at the beginning of February, all the pollution, I think parts of this pollution again coming back over Bangladesh. So Bangladesh, is like all the times, especially November, December. Or January, February. It's like pollution, it's an ocean of pollution. So the situation is really very bad in Bangladesh. If we consider in IGP region, especially Pakistan, India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, the whole region compared to the world, I think now the most polluted region in the world. If you go a couple years back, then maybe China was the #1, but now it's most completely in this region. And recently, I think you saw the report in Chinese report, they are getting better actually. But there is no signature in our region, we are getting better. But there are some effort definitely in India and also in Bangladesh working to control the air pollution. So the situation in this area is really bad. But actually, there is no common platform to work.
Yes,
maybe I work with individual another scientist in India or Pakistan or Nepal, but there is no governmental relation to control this air pollutions. So maybe after this discussion, we will have this kind of
absolutely. That's the objective of this program, is to trigger the people like you to work together. That will do. But let me first have a quick supplementary question. You mentioned about that the pollution coming from the other countries, and that we will be definitely discussing. But what is the scenario in Bangladesh itself? You must be generating a lot of pollution in your own country. So what's the situation out there?
Yes, we are producing a lot of pollution in Bangladesh too. Especially, we have a lot of industries and our economy like based on agriculture, but now we are transferring from agriculture to industry. A lot of industry in Bangladesh, especially near Dhaka city, whole Dhaka division, you will find a lot of industry, and this industry is producing a lot of pollution, and we have a lot of traffic jam in the street, and traffic produces a lot of pollution as well as traffic jam, enhance the pollution level. Another things is the biomass burning. I think more than 70% people living in the rural areas in Bangladesh, and they are using biomass for their cooking purpose. So they also produce a lot of pollution. Another important pollution source is dust. In especially the big cities, we are developing a lot of construction activities happening in Dhaka.
Professor Salam, have you made any apportion study in Dhaka to know exactly what source country, how much has it been done, or will it be any plan to do that?
Yes, there are some studies already about the source apportionment study.
Okay, I'll take on that study from you. I'll take that study from you later. I just would like to know whether the study is there or not. But as we are discussing Bangladesh, let me quickly go over to Professor Kamruzzaman Saab. Professor Kamruzzaman, Majumder, you have been working, I know, in a pan-country pollution measurement system, and you were telling that you have already completed the Dhaka part. Let's share your finding with all of us. What you have got in Dhaka? Professor Salam was just talking about that pollution from November to February. It's like a sea of pollution. So what's your finding is?
Yeah, thank you, Jayanta. Actually, from our center, we concentrate more on ground level air pollution.
Okay.
Whereas Professor Salam sir, actually, he also work beside the ground level. He also worked the transboundary issue and atmospheric air pollution, all these things. In our case, around the year, what we do, we try to measure the on-street air pollution mostly.
Okay.
And that covers mostly some gaseous and some particulate matter.
Okay.
And, as Professor Salam mentioned, one of the major sources for the urban area for the ground level air pollution, that is the construction. And, after 2016, this mega project has started for Dhaka, including the elevated express highway, metro rails, and all other things. And our study reflected that the same thing, that after July 2016, the air pollution curve has increased tremendously. And when the mega project also started, 3 mega project has started in the same time.
Just to interrupt you. Sorry to bother you. Sorry to interrupt you. Said that pollution is increasing since 2016 July. By pollution, you mean since PM10 or both PM10, PM2.5? I just would like to know the specific.
PM2.5. The ratio for PM10 has increased tremendously compared to 2.5. And that actually give us an idea that those pollution part actually coming from the construction work. But that the smaller particles are coming from the burning sources. Okay. That actually from the source apportionment, we can aim to know that those smaller size PM2.5 or lesser than that are coming from the burning sources, mostly from the brick fields around the Dhaka city, that is around 1,000 brick fields. So, but as you ask that the city level, mostly, construction and road excavation and service-oriented road construction and excavation or repairing are the major sources on the street for the air pollution. And, some studies show that people are living just close to the street are like almost double to triple air pollution exposed compared to the people who are living like 100 meters far from the street.
Okay.
So that gives us the idea that the ground level air pollution are mostly coming from the street.
So also, I think it also shows that the vehicular pollution is also playing a very important role.
Yes,
if the people close to the thoroughfare are being more exposed, so it means that vehicular pollution also having a very important role in that.
For the on-street pollution, after the construction, vehicular emission coming the second one.
Okay. Just a quick question that you said from 2016, it's going up very sharply. The trend is on, you measured in 2020, or is still measuring it? It's still on, it's still going up and up?
Yes, it's going up. After 2019, it was during the COVID-19 first part that was reduced when all the construction and vehicle was shut down. But after August and September, it crossed the
Again,
previous year level, and after November, it is now almost 20% more than the previous 5 years.
So it's business as usual now. It's business as usual now. Okay, I think not very encouraging news. Right. Let hear from Imran about the Pakistan scenario. Imran, that when I look at the most polluted cities in the world, I find that Indian names and then the Pakistan names and maybe some Chinese name in between. So we may not be having, maybe having some geopolitical issues, but when it comes to air pollution, we are all same. We are all being exposed to the same kind of, I'd say, polluted air. We are all being, all lungs being choked with that. Be it in Pakistan or be myself in India, it doesn't make any difference. Or in Bangladesh, Professor Salam, same thing. What's your take on that, Imran?
No, that's you're exactly right, Jayanta. And as my colleagues were just speaking about the situation of air quality in their own backyards, it really did resonate with me here in Islamabad, because this is exactly the kind of situation we are facing in Pakistan. So industrial pollution, brick kilns, open burning of trash. Now we've got the coal power plants as well. So, you know, the mix is right there. Yes, there are political boundaries, but the natural boundaries, natural air sheds do not respect the political boundaries. And we can see the situation very similar across those political boundaries.
Imran, what is the dominant sources? I know that, as you said, right now the common sources are common as in Bangladesh or in India. But what are the dominant sources? Is the same trend, or vehicles are the most dominant, or the construction? If you talk about the Pakistan cities a bit, if you take us through the Pakistan cities, I think I was looking at the figure of Lahore. In fact, I was looking at the figure today. Today, when we are talking, we are looking at the figure across the world, across South Asia. I found Dhaka having an AQI of 317 and Lahore 334, and Delhi is around 350. So it's no difference out there. So what about the Pakistan cities? Lahore is most polluted. What is the kind of trend?
Yeah, so Lahore is the most polluted, and it has to do with perhaps the meteorological situation around that city. But that doesn't mean that there is no air pollution around Karachi. Karachi, the AQI figures are quite low. They're still unhealthy. They're low, but and that's because it's a coastal city, and the wind blows the air pollution out to the sea. So as far as source apportionment is concerned, we've done very few studies across Pakistan on a national basis, but a recent source apportionment study by the Food and Agriculture Organization with the Punjab government found that in the Punjab, where Lahore is based, it was the transport sector that was mostly responsible for the air quality issues, followed closely by industrial and then open burning.
Okay, so transport, then industry, then followed by open burning. So that is the kind of contribution paradigm. It's in Lahore, or where it is?
Yes, this is
in Lahore.
In the Punjab, an area surrounding Lahore. Yes.
Okay, great. Sagnik, is very interesting. I think we've gone through the entire South Asia. We talked to India and then Bangladesh and then Pakistan, and found mostly the contributions and mostly the sources are similar. And we'll discuss it. I think a lot of them are low-hanging sources. Actually, you can control them if you really wanted to. There have to be political will across the board to do that. Before coming to the policy part, Sagnik, if you can take us through this transboundary movement. Professor Salam mentioned about it, how the pollution comes from other countries on Bangladesh and then again go away and like that. So what's exactly the picture, Sagnik, if you can kind of take us through that?
Yeah, so very quickly, if you talk about the transboundary transport, then you need to look at the geography of the region. So what happens is that this entire Indo-Gangetic plain is sandwiched between the Himalayas in the north and the central Indian mountain range in the south. So what happens, and this is the region which is fertile, very high population density and all possible sources, which are mentioned by all the esteemed colleagues. And then what happens is that, there is no other way to disperse the pollution, but basically oscillate, east-west. So what happens is that, when the wind blows from northwest, the pollution is sort of pushed back from Pakistan towards India, and then further down, towards the eastern part of India, like Bihar, West Bengal, and towards the Bangladesh. So the only way actually to flush out the pollution is what Professor Salam mentioned, like, through the corridor of West Bengal and Bangladesh towards the Bay of Bengal. So that's a kind of typical movement.
So let me understand. So as you are saying that it is generating in around that Pakistan and then coming to Indian northern part of India and then coming to that corridor of Indo-Gangetic plains to Bihar, Jharkhand and West Bengal and then to Bangladesh and then to the sea. So is that the track?
Yeah, the track is there, but it's generated everywhere. It's not like it's only generated in
Pakistan. It's generating everywhere.
Yeah, so it's generating everywhere, but then the pollution is sort of pushed back depending on the season. So mostly in many of the months, typically between October to February, you can say, this is what actually happens is that the pollution is pushed back towards the eastern part. During monsoon, obviously the wind direction is slightly different because the southeast monsoon enters India and Bangladesh, from Bay of Bengal particularly. So then the wind direction is from east to west. But obviously during the monsoon, what happens is that, the rainfall washes out particles. So even if the wind is now coming from eastern side to western side, there is not much transboundary movement.
Okay.
But this is the corridor actually in the northern sort of.
This is a toxic corridor. This is a toxic corridor.
That's the toxic corridor. But
that's
then
the toxic corridor.
Then you come to the central India, then it's kind of a different meteorology and all.
But it means that the pollution that we get in Dhaka or in Kolkata is actually linked to the pollution happening in Delhi or maybe in Lahore.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this entire corridor actually is interconnected, and that's why we always say that that air pollution is not a local problem; it's a regional problem. And the other thing is important that we talked about October to February, that peak period. But if you look at the numbers, I would say that air pollution is also a year-round problem. And I'm sure, other colleagues, especially Karthik, will talk more about that. So all our kind of attention is during the winter, but it's actually there throughout the year.
Also, I think all our attention is so much Delhi-centric. When we find the smaller cities in the country, I think the experience is similar in Bangladesh and Pakistan as well. But we are so much Delhi-centric, Karachi-centric, maybe Kolkata-centric, but there are smaller cities around which are maybe even more polluted but are not being considered. I think that's the situation everywhere. Before I go over for the policy part and other part, Sagnik, a very, very quick supplementary one is that what's the way out if it be coming like that? And as you said, the pollution being added at every possible point, Delhi adding to it, Bangladesh adding to it, West Bengal adding to it. So we need like that income tax reduction at source, that the model we need to follow. What do you think about it?
No, definitely. I mean, see, the one thing is very clear is that you have to reduce pollution at the source. That means you have to reduce the emission. There is no other way out. I mean, you cannot try, control air pollution once it's out there. But one good thing is that at least now this regional nature of the air pollution has been recognized. So from Delhi-centric dialogue, now we are talking about at least, under the National Clean Air Program, we are talking about all the cities. And hopefully in the near future, we'll actually start talking about the air shape.
Okay, great. And I'll come to the policy part, but very quickly, let me go to Professor Salam, because this issue you are talking about, that what's your take on this regional movement and what do you feel about it? Because as I understand, as the water from Ganges come from Himalaya and finally end up through Bangladesh to the sea, similarly the pollution is taking the similar kind of source, almost the similar kind of track. So what's your take on that, Professor Salam?
Thank you, Jayanta. I think it's a very good discussion. Before your point, I would like to mention something. Professor Kamruzzaman mentioned about the trend of the pollutions. In Bangladesh, if we talk about the particulate matter, so we are getting higher range. But there are some success history too in Bangladesh too. If you consider the black carbon, We measured black carbon in 2003, 2005. That time it was like 40 microgram per meter cube, but it goes down now. It's like 8 or 10 microgram per meter cube, but it's still 100 times higher than the developed country. There is, if you consider lead in the atmosphere, in 1996.
Just hold for a second. You measure black carbon regularly?
Yes, we have. Yes, I have some project. We collect.
Actually, it's part of your project.
Yes.
Government as an institution doesn't measure it.
No.
Just let me check with Sagnik. Sagnik, is black carbon measured in India?
Yes, I know. Yes, I know. Many Indians, they are measuring.
No, hasn't been measured, but I don't think it's been measured by Central Pollution Control Board or institution. Maybe measured by the researchers like Sagnik.
No, not by Central Pollution Control Board, but I will tell you a very interesting thing. Like India Meteorological Department has a black carbon network, and as well as the ISRO under the Geosphere Biosphere program. Yeah, so there are at least 40 to 45 sites.
Okay. Imran, anything about black carbon there in Pakistan? Do you measure it?
I'm not aware of whether we're doing it. We are. See, so it's affecting the glacier. It's affecting the glacial melting up in the north, right?
I'm asking this because now globally the relationship is drawn between the black carbon and the climate change. So this is a very, very important new area of research that's coming up. So that's why it's very important.
It is.
Yes, I would. Okay.
Please, Imran, just quick comment, then come to Professor Salam.
Yeah, there is a university in Peshawar that has taken this up. So it is being done at an academic level in at least one university that I know of.
Okay, great. Professor Salam, please.
Okay, so I mentioned black carbon. So
you not only mentioned, you triggered the whole discussion with black carbon. That's why we come around.
Yeah, so black carbon concentration is going down. There are some reasons I will mention later on somewhere. And we also had, success history for lead concentration. Lead in the atmosphere, it was really dangerous. So the concentration now is also going down. And I would like to also think another thing, the black carbon aging. We have another paper. We collect sample in Delhi, Kathmandu, Dhaka, and Bay of Bengal, and Hanimado in Maldives. Okay. So we saw the black carbon aging, how it changes its optical properties, and it's published last year in Science Advance. So black carbon is passing through all the IGP region, and it changes with the travel. It's travel and it's aging and changes properties. Sometimes it's warming more, sometimes it's warming less. So this is another thing we saw. But you mentioned what actually we need to do in the whole region, how we get out from this severe hazardous situation in this region. It's very clear. We all know the characteristics of the PM 2.5, like from where they are coming, almost the similar situation in Delhi, Dhaka, Kathmandu, mostly either fossil fuel or biomass burning. It's like 50-50 share. If you see the literature last couple of years, it's mostly 50-50 share, like 45%, 55%, either fossil fuel or biomass burning. So these are the sources we know on now. So we have to control, that's Shangri mentioned, we have to control this from source, but there is no government level regional effort. We need government level regional
I'm coming to that. We need to hold the government by its neck, but we'll come to that.
Here I would like to mention, we have the many regional collaboration, like we have one organization, IGAC Mango, International Global Atmospheric Monsoon Asia and Oceania. We are doing some work together, and I also work with some Indian scientists, and Indian scientists also work with us. So we have some scientist level collaboration. We don't have anything like you mentioned Pollution Control Board or DOE or any other organization. So we need to focus on there, and there is no other alternative. We must stop the pollution from the source.
Absolutely. But Professor Salam, whatever this very important research you are doing as scientists across South Asia in collaboration with other countries, this needs to come in the mainstream. People need to know about it, because unless it is being known, it will not create pressure on the governments, and they will never ever act. You have some fantastic peer-reviewed papers, but it will not help the people that I'm sure you are trying to do. So that's very important to do. So let me go to Karthik here. Karthik, let me bring you into this discussion, the policy issue. We are very clear, I think this half an hour discussion made it very clear that the South Asian countries need a holistic policy, a macro level policy to counter this enormous air pollution problem. But unfortunately, don't have it. I'm sure the politicians are not naive. They understand it much, much better than we do. So what's the policy situation, Karthik, and what do you see in future?
Right. I was recently in a discussion which actually had, colleagues from Pakistan as well as part of it. And I think the policy imperative is there, Jayanta, right? I'll take the example of India, for instance. So if you look at across the spectrum, whether it is, for instance, the push for cleaner cooking fuels, right, which is the Ujjwala program that India has launched, 8 crore connections to people given in a matter of 3 years, right? Less than. Phenomenal achievement. Of course, the adoption of LPG has not been as good as we would have liked in all those connections, but it will make a dent in the years to come, right? Look at BS6, right? I was actually shocked to learn in that conversation where, Imran's, colleague from Pakistan, Ahmad, right? He was telling me about how, BS2 was, BS2 and BS4 were pretty much, BS2 is still prevalent in Pakistan, right? And, they actually have to import, fuels from across, right? I mean, in India is, for instance, a big supplier of, BS6 fuel, for our own economy. Unfortunately, because South Asian trade is so limited, right? The fuel can't get across from India to Pakistan. So it'll be very, very easy for us, India can easily make a difference. When it comes to, ensuring that our neighbors also get access to the best in class technology, because, we have such a large production base for all of this. So, I mean, there's vehicles, there's this, but, when it comes to thermal power, which is again a big source of generation, again, renewable energy, which is a big focus of, of our policymakers, across the board, right? Whether it's Pakistan, whether it's, India or Nepal or Bangladesh, we all know that the move is there. So I think it's a matter of time before, some flush out the existing sources of, that emission, right? So the problem is we've built up a stock of all of it. When you talk about, coal-fired power plants or, BS2 vehicles or BS4 vehicles, or, households that rely on chulas, right? All of these exist, right?
Okay.
You can't, unfortunately, just, flip a switch and change it.
No, I agree with you that there are policies on ground, but I have two clear counter questions. Not really two, one, but a supplementary one about this transboundary policy. I'm also mentioning about the policy about transboundary. When we have something called SARC or like that, why can't we have a South Asian air pollution combat policy? So that's why I'm driving at. But before that, you said that, let's take India, you're talking about Ujjwala scheme, you talk about BS6. But I think preaching policy is one thing and practicing policy is something different. I've been covering environment for 2 decades now. And you can clearly see that how investing in favor of pollution gives you quick money. Let not kind of forget about it. And you have the best of the policies. India always has the best of the policies, best of the regulation, and the worst of the implementations. Mm-hmm. So we can clearly see, despite the judicial orders, how the kind of polluted cars are plying on the road. You can see the thermal power plants are being kind of emitting like anything. So policies need to be practiced. Politics just cannot be preached. So that's where I think you'll be definitely agree with me that's where the problem lies.
Yeah. So 2 quick responses to that, Jayanta, right? So when I speak to, senior bureaucrats, who are, functionaries in various ministries that respond to air pollution, one of the things they say is in countries like India, Pakistan, or for the matter in Bangladesh, there will never be enough enforcement capacity, right? There will never be enough. There will never be enough enforcement capacity. You can never have enough of it because, we're such
large... Is it enforcement capacity or enforcement willingness?
No, capacity. Right? I don't think it's about willingness. I think it's about capacity, right? Like you can, whether it's, for instance, waste burning that Imran's spoken about. I mean, you will have 10,000 fires in the roads of Karachi and, New Delhi. You can't have people going out there and dousing each one of them, right? So at the end of the day, I think a lot of it also needs to come from making a citizen base aware of,
I completely agree.
Right? Of what exactly is it that they can also do. So I think this is one of those things where communities need to come together to figure out, how can I actually contribute to the solution? Because ultimately, if it's going to be, I will do what I will continue to, right? Whether it's buying a diesel car or, mixing my waste and dumping it, which will prevent it from being composted and, handled properly. And if I'm going to be truant about it, then you can't change it. So I think,
completely.
2 hands are needed. And I think
completely
that is one place where South Asia perhaps has not done such a great job where I think we've always had this thing of, jab tak ghar saaf hai, as long as my home is clean, I'm fine with it. Anything outside it, I don't care about it, which is, and I think, a different approach that I think the West has taken.
No, I completely agree with that. But I'm very also strong with the government's role. So let's bring Kamruzzaman Saab here in the discussion. That governments across South Asia, I'm not saying India or Bangladesh or Pakistan, or the politicians, because the governments are being, these are all democratic areas of politicians are being elected to run the governments. And if you talk to the politicians, I won't say all of them, but I think a majority believe that environment is a deterrent. Environment is a deterrent to the so-called developmental practices. That's their mindset is. So they put up some laws under some pressure, civil society pressure. Karthik is talking about the role of individuals, extremely important. But government is the elephant in the room. If government doesn't show the direction, nothing can happen. So what's your take on the Bangladesh situation? How Bangladesh government is proactive about air pollution issue? I'm not talking about the other issues, air pollution issues.
Yes, actually the government is in favor of giving the clean air, and that's why government is actually, they are formulating the clean air that's supposed to become during 2018, but even after the 2 years, we are not getting the Clean Air Act. Otherwise, the government has actually very recently, they have their policy change, like coming back to the clean fuel instead of coal-fired power plant. Recently, even last year, government planned for 18 coal-fired power plant, but now they are coming with only 5. Rest of 12 or 13, they are just postponed or just keep stop of building those coal-based power plants, mostly situated in the southern part, in the coastal part of the country. That is as a whole. But considering the Dhaka's air quality control, we can see that the policy is there, as Karthik just mentioned, but the implementation of laws is absent. That's why we cannot actually bring a cleaner city, as because a lot of construction work is going on. Even the Supreme Court give a verdict to the big construction firm to follow the construction rule to avoid the air pollution. Even the Department of Environment, they imposed 2 times the big fine, but finally it is not coming. So the things are as before.
So it's kind of a reluctant administration. What I'm saying, that I'm not saying that government doesn't have the will. Government does have the will. I completely agree with Karthik, completely agree with all of you. The government definitely has a will. But the problem is for government, when it comes to the ground level to implement, and always, as I said, that investing against environment always gives you an easy bucks. And politically also for example, in Kolkata, there are about 30,000 or 40,000 auto rickshaws. Many of them run illegally, but you need them in a political procedure. They force the bulk of your frontline soldiers, be any party out there. So all these auto rickshaws, Sagnik may be knowing about it, they keep 3 or 4 color flags in their kind of car. Whatever party comes into the front, they give that flag and they run. They're the king on the road. The king on the road. I once wrote a kind of copy in Telegraph. My editor has a wonderful first line that autos are king on the road because they pay king ransom. So that's where the whole thing comes. Imran, what's the situation in Pakistan out there? Sam?
So in Pakistan, the situation, I'll say it's a glass half full situation. We've had a number of environmental laws dating back to the 70s and the 80s. That's when the environmental issues were being taken into cognizance. Environmental departments were coming into play. In the late 90s, we started with our environmental quality standards. And so we were defining what kind of pollution should there be in our water bodies, in the air, and that sort of a thing. By 2005, we had a clean air program that was funded with the help of the Japanese government. But when the Japanese aid ended, the program fell by the wayside. The equipment fell into disarray. The human capacity, found better jobs in the Middle East. And then around 2015, 2016, when this whole episode with Lahore and the smog started, the government really started to think about, resolving this. And at that time, they weren't sure what was happening because there had been no apportionment studies done. The capacity just wasn't there, as Karthik said. So the will might have been there at the highest level, but you didn't have the technical resources, the human resources.
That's where the problem is.
Yeah. So we're trying to build on that. So what's quickly happened over the past couple of years is that we've tried to find our way now. So the one thing that just recently happened was that the Prime Minister is saying, "Oh, look, we're not going to build any more coal power plants." We've built quite a few, but I guess that's a positive step. The other thing that we've done is we've said that we're going to bring in an electric vehicle policy, whereby we're going to change the transport sector. Karthik mentioned our reliance on Euro 2 fuel, which the Europeans stopped using back in the early 90s. I think in India it's again it's perhaps been 2 decades since you guys used it. So we are bringing in Euro 5 fuel, but that's being brought in from the outside because we don't have the capacity. Our refineries, we've got a few refineries, but none of them have the capacity to ensure that our fuel quality meets the international standards. Okay. So we're getting there.
Okay, I think very interesting. I think I understand the complications of South Asia. It's not very easier said than done because it's a huge area and the extremely high population density. And also the poverty is, I think, one of the biggest in the world. So it's not very easy to impose this, whatever the policy they are. So there are issues, but let me kind of try to find out a solution mode. I have around 10 minutes time let me start with Professor Salam first, that given the situation that we are in, given the situation that South Asia forms the bulk of pollution, air pollution in the world, given the situation that most of the South Asian countries have the issues of poverty, have the issues of high population density, don't you think that at macro level, at one micro level, implementation is that one issue? At the macro level, at the government level, and maybe also the beyond government level, like the experts like you, there should be initiative, collective South Asian initiative to counter air pollution. And if you feel that it should have been, what can be the way out? Professor Salam.
Unmute.
Thank you. Yes, we need South Asian collective initiative to control air pollution in this region. Recently, we have started, one project under the US State Department, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Nepal, and Bhutan. This whole region to study the policy and also to study the air pollution and also source apportionment and also some suggestion. So we need this kind of study more and more from the scientific perspective. If we know what actually we need, then we can come for the solution. And after getting knowing these issues, what is our solution or what is our problem? Then we can ask our policy maker, okay, this is the thing, we need to do it. And I believe all of the policy maker, all politician or the government in this region, they wants to do it. Anybody wants, okay, my country should not be dirty country. Everybody wants it should be a clean country. So they want, but if they want, still they have some limitation. Number one, Karthik mentioned the infrastructure. Like our Department of Environment, they have maybe couple hundred employees, but they are not enough to control all issues of air pollution, water pollution, right, sound pollution, soil pollution. Still, they have the desire, but the infrastructure is not there. So we have to improve that infrastructure. And there in Bangladesh, actually, there are a couple of steps to control the air pollution. Like they are trying to, get the improved brick kilns. They also would like to get the alternative materials for the brick kilns. Now we are using bricks. Maybe
these brick kilns are legal. These brick kilns are legal.
Yes, brick kilns are legal, and most of the brick kilns, they use coal. Before they use biomass and other things. Okay, so okay. Now they are using coal. So they would like to get the improved cleans, and also they want to phase out these brick kilns. So there are some steps government taking. So I think, especially in India, the countries in this region normally follows India. What India is doing to control the air pollution. They are doing good, I think, nowadays. There are a lot of initiative in India to control air pollution. But actually in field, maybe it is not yet happening, but there are a lot of initiatives. So if this initiative,
we have some strategy out there.
Yes, if this initiative taken by India, then maybe other countries copied this thing in this region.
I take your point that scientists are working together to bring out some policy kind of formulation and suggestion. But Karthik, this policy formulation needs to be mainstreamed. The governments need to mainstream the finding, the evidences that the scientists are generating, and based on that, had to do a policy. But unfortunately, our geopolitics don't allow us to do that. That's where the problem is. If you go to Africa, you will find that countries who are fighting among themselves, when coming to the UN platform, you have seen it yourself, they have been talking in one voice for Africa, but they have been fighting outside. So, but why can't we do that, Karthik? What if we can't do that geopolitically? What preventing the experts like you to come on board and say that we need a collective policy?
Karthik. Jayanta, so I'm unfortunately not an expert on international relations and and strategic partnerships between countries. But what I can say is I think the expertise when it comes to understanding air pollution, right, is fairly easily transferred across the geographies we're talking about. Right. I mean, Sagnik, as you know, is an expert in looking at how satellites can help monitor. Right. It's a very good first start to understanding what's polluting our air. There are groups that are based out of India. The Sharat Guttikunda, for instance, who's got a very good developed model can actually forecast air pollution for areas like Delhi, right? That knowledge can be transferred fairly easily. But the big missing sort of chunk in all of this, right, is at the end of the day, trying to sort of instill a sense of, okay, this is what is polluting each local area. I mean, the studies is one part, right? But for instance, in the case of India, one of the things that we keep harping about, Jayanta, is understanding what is it that's actually being emitted from the ground that we need to be concerned about, right? And that understanding is not crystal clear, and I think it's needed. I mean, while people will say, we know enough to act, right? I would still argue that, for instance, in places like Delhi, right, when you look at the winters, I mean, meteorology is one part of it, but clearly, we have no handle on the kind of activities that actually contribute to it, right? Waste burning. Right? We have no sense of, what is the actual volume of waste that actually gets cleared to the landfills versus how much actually gets burnt.
So that's what I'm talking about. That's the low-hanging fruits.
Correct.
You can really do that.
It's a low-hanging fruit, but I'm saying that this initiative, right, at some level needs to come from not just the federal government, right? This has to be where, cities have to have the ability and the wherewithal to handle, the understanding and, of course, the addressing of the issue. Because the central governments in any of these countries...
So you're saying that municipal governments, the municipalities and unfortunately, they have to do that. Okay.
The way, I think the three structures of decision making. Unfortunately, in the case of, I think maybe India, Pakistan and Bangladesh is not nearly as well developed as it is in the West. The finances, for instance, of, states and cities in the country is not, robust enough. So their ability to delegate the responsibility to the...
I understand. I take your point that you say that not the federal government can't do everything. Yep. You need the regional governments, you need the state and also the city governments to come on board and actually take a call on that. That's very important, but unfortunately, that's not happening. That's not happening as it should have been. Let's very quickly go to Kamruzzaman, your take on that. The same question, how we can take it forward across South Asia. Kamruzzaman, no point.
Yes, as we all know that cross-border air pollution, that should be actually solved only by the strengthening the common border countries' cooperation. Otherwise, it will not be possible. And that's why, like in the end of very first week of the December, the newspaper here in Dhaka reported that the biomass burning from Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, and Punjab, actually, that actually affected first Delhi, and after a week that came to the Bangladesh border. So that was reported in the newspaper in Dhaka. And you know, most of the people they love to believe that the air pollution mostly coming from the Indian biomass burning during that time. And you know, 6th December, that was the highest peak of the air pollution for that last year for Bangladesh. And you know, that's why we need actually joint collaborative research. As Karthik just mentioned, remote sensing and GIS could be a very important tool to analyze and the aging of the pollutant and the movement of the pollution. And only after getting a solid approved documents and scientific findings, we can start actually collaborative discussion among the SAARC country and try to solve the issue problem.
Absolutely. I think also I think apart from this discussion, I understand the geopolitics is a major role to play, and governments may not be kind of straight away start talking about on these issues. But what can happen is that when the scientists like Professor Salam, yourself, Sagnik, and everybody on board, Imran and the policy people like Imran, Karthik, the people like you, the experts like you, then coming up with a very evidence-based document, and might be media catching it up. It goes to the public domain and start putting pressure on the governments. Then the government has to kind of acknowledge it and maybe come forward. So I'm saying that the research should not be stopped in the laboratory itself. It has to go beyond the laboratory. You have to play a role in that, and then take it forward to the next level so the governments are active. They have been made active on that. Let's take Imran's view on that. Imran, what's your take on that? How it can be taken forward? Taken that governments may not talk among themselves, but don't you think that policymakers like you can interact? And now we don't need a visa in this COVID period. We don't need a visa. We can just talk like this. We don't need a visa to go to Pakistan or Bangladesh. We can talk like this. Imran, what's your take on that?
No, definitely. We definitely do not need a visa. And then, there are a number of things we can do. So in '98, so there are platforms that already exist. There is something called the South Asia Cooperative Environment Program, SASEP, that's been around since the early 1980s. And they had a Mali declaration in '98, and that was primarily focused on transboundary air pollution concerns, right? But then that's also fallen by the wayside and due to the politics. But beyond that, I would really like to see us talk about the health impacts of air pollution. So why can't a hospital in Lahore, a doctor there, just WhatsApp the X-ray, the lung X-ray of a patient to somebody in Delhi to see, look, do you see something similar? Do you think that this might have something to do with the air quality issues? And if that is so, how can we resolve it? At this time, we in Pakistan, we definitely lack health data in this regard. So if India has already taken the steps to correlate air pollution with health-related concerns, then we can perhaps follow suit, and perhaps people in Dhaka can do the same. And so there are various areas where we can collaborate, and
so you
is offering that. Yes.
So you agree that there's various ways to collaborate on that, and there are options to collaborate even beyond government. So beyond border and beyond government. Sagnik, final points with you. Working on this transboundary, you can jolly well understand the importance of it and the dynamics of it. But you need a policy. You need a policy at the South Asian level to counter the South Asian level pollution. So taking into consideration the governments and as they are, and the geopolitics that kind of being operative there. What do you feel can be done at a short-term, long-term basis to take it forward so that some collaboration at some level works in South Asia? Sagnik.
Yeah, short-term definitely is collaborations between the scientists, which is anyway happening. I just want to mention that WHO has formed a regional, South Asia Regional Technical Advisory Group, not just focusing on air pollution, but on non-communicable diseases. And part of that, where air pollution is one of the major risk factors. It was just formed in early 2019. And the hope is that this group will work with basically this is a Southeast Asia regional group. So it means that, all the South Asian countries, not just the Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, but even Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and other countries also are part of it. And the whole objective of this group is to, cater this kind of collaborative effort and try to, talk to the respective governments who can actually form policies in their country, but then these policies can be sort of synced or, interlinked, and that's, I think, I see that is actually the long-term goal. But yeah, short-term, obviously, it's not stopping scientists to collaborate. We are already collaborating, as Professor Salam mentioned, and my group is also doing that. In fact, Karthik is also part of a network program which we are carrying out with NASA colleagues and UC Berkeley colleagues and all, where we are planning actually to sort of again, fill the important data gap and all. Yeah, so I think, I am a very optimistic person, so I'm sure in the next coming years, the collaboration will grow and definitely we'll see actually that the problem is getting, resolved.
Just a very quick suggestion. It seems that the collaboration is there, but perhaps you need more societal linkages to make that collaboration output more meaningful than they are right now. Meaningful in the sense that making them meaningful in context of the future formulation of policy. So I think more social linkages, more horizontal linkages might have been there. And you mentioned about WHO. I had the opportunity to meet and talk extensively with the WHO head on climate change and air pollution. And he said that from South Asia, when he tried to talk to the governments about this air pollution issues and all that, their policy issues, the initial response was not that I would say hopeful. So they actually published a report in Madrid saying that still the governments are not that keen to talk with WHO or allow it to do a detailed study when it comes. So maybe another day, but today we had, I think, a fabulous discussion. I think I really, really hope that this program is objective, is to open up the possibilities. I just would like to open up the possibilities on table. I believe that the experts like you already been collaborating among this program will perhaps work as a trigger, a small trigger to work together. Because be it in Pakistan, Imran, be it in India, Sagnik, myself, or Karthik, or be it in Bangladesh, Salam Saab or Dr. Kamruzzaman, the lungs are all same. And lungs are being equally choked. So we need to leave. And if we need to leave, then we need to counter this pollution, air pollution together. With this, today, again, another time, another day. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
cabinet level position in one case. These are among the brightest, most dedicated people, not only in the country, but the world. And I want to say good afternoon to all the American people. And two of the most extraordinary, least known departments, especially the last